To continue this discussion, we're going to ask the question, has the Chancellor done enough to help people in our cultural debate? I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Matt Vickers, Conservative MP for Stockton South, and former Conservative MEP Lance Foreman. Now, to the both of you, do you think this budget provided enough support? I'll start with you, Matt.
I think, do you know what, when you see the bills that people are getting, when you see the rise in prices at the petrol pumps, I don't think he could possibly have done enough. I don't think it's possible to do enough. I don't think it's within the gift of government to overturn some of these price increases that we're seeing. And I think, you know what, there was a lot of support there. There's a lot of things that will make a serious difference to people, actually. I don't think people have actually realised how big a difference some of it will make, whether that be the change in national insurance threshold is actually massive. It's going to put 330 quid in people's pockets. It's huge. And actually, the good thing about it is it's focused, it's targeted on the people who need it most. 70% of the population are going to be paying less in tax than they were at the beginning of that statement.
Matt, the Telegraph have reported that Boris Johnson allegedly wanted more help on energy bills and Rishi Sunak refused. Would you be disappointed to hear that?
Darren, you and I know better than to believe everything we read in the newspapers or see on the television. Particularly, I think the press will always have an angle on everything about somebody who wanted to spend more, somebody who wanted to spend less. This tax cut is the biggest cut to personal tax in a quarter of a century. It is a big deal. Would we like more? Is it going to save everybody from the harm and the pain that they're going to endure from these massive bills that are landing on our doorsteps? No, it isn't. But it's a good start, and it's going to support people in helping them make ends meet.
Lance, it was always going to be the case, wasn't it, that after 2 years, as I say, of switching the economy on and off like a light switch, that Rishi Sunak would have to be straight with the public about the state of our public finances and say to her, look, if you want these health and social care services, for example, you're going to have to pay for them.
What's frustrating, Darren, not just about Rishi Sunak, but pretty much every Chancellor, for the last 20 years, is they tinker around at the edges. And we've got to a situation now after 20, 25 years of not grappling with some of the serious fundamental problems that our country faces, of the biggest cost of living crisis we've ever had. And to start knocking off 5p on fuel per litre when people are going to be paying £1,000–2,000 more per family for their energy, for their electricity, just isn't going to cut it. We need some fundamental long-term changes. We need to deal with energy. We need, I'm not saying just frack, of course, but we need to frack. We need nuclear. We need a diverse energy policy where we, all of those different forms of energy are competing to get on track as quickly as possible. We need a housing policy. We need to reform planning. The biggest cost that particularly young people have in their lives is paying off a mortgage or, trying to get a mortgage or rent. We don't have enough homes in this country. We need to deal with the cost of living. It is a massive problem, and energy and housing are the two biggest issues. And that's what we need to focus on.
Lance, you defected from the Brexit Party as a member of the European Parliament to the Conservatives and in part, I'm sure, played a role in bringing about Boris Johnson's 2019 majority, the biggest since Thatcher. Do you regret that decision?
Look, I don't regret it. It was definitely the right move at the time. But I think that the government seemed to be missing the point of Brexit. What the British people were saying was that they weren't happy with the way things were being done. They wanted fundamental change. They wanted to take back control, in their words, and they wanted things done differently. We need the private sector to flourish. Rishi Sunak has put up corporation taxes. If businesses can't flourish, and particularly smaller businesses can't flourish, what hope is there for the economy? Why are we punishing them? Why are we punishing them now with increases in national insurance? And the state, the state thinks that it can solve everyone's problems. It's, investing 100 billion in HS2. I'm a free marketer, but even if you're a Keynesian, you only invest in state-funded projects when there's high unemployment. And we don't have high unemployment at the moment. We're competing. The state is competing with the private sector, and it shouldn't be. It should allow the private sector to be flourishing. That's what we need to be doing.
Before I come back to Matt, Lance, I just want you to illustrate for me, because I've had conversations with you in the past about this, just illustrate for me what the as an energy intensive industry, as you are, you need it to put out your products. How much is the increase in energy costs actually meaning that you're having to say, well, we're going to have fewer sales, we're going to have fewer jobs created, we're going to have, you name it, it's going to be tough.
Absolutely, Darren. Well, this sort of came to my attention last October when my own small business had an increase in electricity costs of £200,000 a year to £400,000 a year. That is absolutely massive. And we're just one small business. And, we've had to put our prices up. But some customers don't like the higher prices, which means we won't be able to make a profit, which means the government won't be able to raise any corporation tax. And none of this needs to happen. It's our mad green energy policy that's doing this. And Boris says now we need to build more wind farms. It hasn't been windy for the last week. It doesn't matter whether you have one wind turbine or a million wind turbines. If the wind doesn't blow, you're not creating energy. We need to have diversity. We need to be fracking. We need to be going to North Sea
Lance,
to get a start.
I totally get you. I hear what you're saying there. I want to put that to Matt. Matt, what do you say to your constituents, right, who are looking at Boris Johnson's plans to scrap planning permission and say, right, you can go hell for leather on these wind turbines? Those wind turbines aren't going to power people's gas boilers, are they?
I think the solution, all of our energy crisis, all of our energy problems is the fact that we've neglected infrastructure for such a long time. Actually, we should be living. Nuclear has such a big role to play, and we turned the taps off on it in recent years. We should actually be going full throttle. And I think the government's got that now. The government has got the idea that we need to start getting into nuclear, that we need to start, this green agenda. Everybody talks about net zero. Actually, we should be talking about energy security. We should be talking about cheaper energy and the way that comes about. Not talking about just whether it's green, it's good. Actually, it's about what we're getting back in return for investing in these green energy projects.
Yeah, exactly. But on that point then, and to go back to some of what Lance was saying, are the Tories really being bold enough, right? If you consider, and I imagine your post bag is pretty full, your emails are coming in thick and fast with constituents saying, Matt, I don't know how I'm going to do this, mate.
I think, you're entirely right. The price increase that people are paying out on energy, on fuel, is unbelievable, is unbearable. And actually, government doesn't have the answer. Government cannot possibly pay everybody's electricity bill. We've got to do what we can to help people. But I just think, there is a limit. Actually, the other thing that's coming down the line, so we've had this pandemic. It's created a situation where we've got huge national debt. We were paying 13.5 million people's wages. We spent £410 billion in supporting people on that pandemic. It's left us with this huge national debt. The interest payments are projected at £83 billion. You cannot get to a point where you're paying out more on interest than you're paying for schools, for defence. We need to, control the bank balance, the national bank balance, and control that, get that debt down. At the same time, we need to help people in what is a massive crisis. So it's a balancing act. I wish there was more help for people, but I think it's probably what we can do with what we've got.
Correct, though? Do you think your constituents will think that you've got that balance right?
Do you know what? They're seeing these huge bills arriving on their doorsteps, and they know that it's terrible. Can government control what everybody's energy bill is? This is a global problem. It's the world over this issue is occurring. And actually, the other thing that's coming down the line beyond this and beyond the Ukraine issue, we've got a big problem coming with food and drink supply chain, where people are going to be paying more for certain things that they're picking up off supermarket shelves. Ukraine and Russia, one of the biggest exporters of bread, of wheat, of fertilizer. This is the next hit in the cost of living crisis: is food and drink and the cost on our shelves.
Indeed, this debate will rattle on and on and on. Thank you very much, Matt Vickers, Conservative MP for Stockton South, and former Conservative MEP Lance Foreman.